Hi and welcome back to my channel TLCKP. Thank you for returning to view if you saw my previous video that I recorded just before Christmas. Today I'm going to do a video on my breastfeeding journey so far. For those of you that are new or don't know, I had my baby 11 months ago, just under 11 months ago now, and she is our third child. We have two older ones who I also breastfed only for a short period of time. I had our daughter Penny 11 months ago, and she turns 1 in the middle of February. I had her via cesarean section at 37 plus 2 weeks. So she was just under 3 weeks early. That was a planned cesarean section. I have then been breastfeeding ever since. So basically, if I go right back to the very beginning, so when I had my daughter, my eldest daughter Chloe, back in the beginning of 2005, I had absolutely no intention of formula feeding. Although I was young, I just knew I wanted to breastfeed, and that was the first thing that I thought of. And so I didn't plan to do anything other than breastfeed. I just planned that when I delivered her, that I would just breastfeed, and that would be it. Even thinking back now, I'm glad I didn't go in with any other intentions, because it's not something that I would have been happy with myself if I'd have done that. So I'm glad in my own decision that that's the one that I made. So with Chloe, I gave birth via cesarean section because she turned breech at 6 days overdue. That's a story for another video. But I gave birth at 41 plus 1, so she was 8 days overdue, and via cesarean section, and I breastfed straight away. And apologies, I'm just looking at my little notes that I've got here to remember what I'm talking about, basically. But yeah, I breastfed straight away. We were in hospital for a couple of days, not very long, and as soon as I came out of hospital, I continued to breastfeed. Now, from the second night in hospital, Chloe pretty much slept through the night and then continued to do so. Even once we got home, she continued to sleep through the night, which at the time I didn't know. I wasn't educated on breastfeeding. I didn't know the ins and outs of things, but I didn't know that not feeding her frequently throughout the night, or even most nights at all, that would actually lower my overall supply. And so as time went on, my supply lowered to the point of where I wasn't getting anything out. And I did try to express, however, it just didn't work. I didn't have an electric pump at the time. I had a manual pump, and I didn't really get very much. So I moved on to formula, and I actually managed to breastfeed for 4 weeks, which, I mean, I'm still glad that she got 4 weeks of breast milk. I will say that my diet and lack of water intake definitely had, I would say, definitely, knowing what I know now, definitely would have played a big part in that, in the fact that I didn't drink anywhere near as much water as I do now, and I certainly didn't eat nutritiously enough at the time. And then, so I moved on to formula milk. At the time we used Cow and Gate, but that was just what was out there at the time, with Advent bottles. But that was just what I used at the time. I had a couple of friends who just recommended the Cow and Gate formula, so that's what I used and continued to do so until she was a year old, where we moved on to cow's milk. Now, I had my son at the very end of 2007, just a few days before Christmas. He was actually due on Christmas Day, but we actually we ended up having a cesarean. Because I'd had a cesarean with Chloe, we then had to have one. Well, at the time, the hospital trust that I was under were very pro cesarean section, especially if you'd had one before. So I fought them the entire way. Every consultant's appointment, I said no, I wasn't interested in a cesarean. And then the last appointment, I was attended on my own. My partner at the time, now husband, couldn't attend because he had to work, and I just caved. I'd been in early labour for about 2 weeks by this point. It was incredibly uncomfortable, and so I just caved. And so, yes, but again, the full story for another day, for another video. So again, I went into hospital with the intention of breastfeeding him. I didn't take any provisions if he wasn't able to feed off of me, and luckily he did, he could. And so that's what I did. I breastfed him completely. I tried to learn my lessons from Chloe, so I tried to drink more, tried to eat better, but again, didn't do brilliantly. And I didn't know as much about breastfeeding and the fact that you're supposed to eat more calories and things like this that I do now. And at the time, I was very active. Obviously, I had Chloe, who was nearly 3 years old, and so was running around after her. And so I breastfed for as long as I could. But it got to the point of where Kai was around 6 weeks old, and his weight, because at the time we used to get them weighed weekly, and that was just something he did. So he used to take him to the weighing clinics, and everything was normal then, pre-COVID, obviously. But so he stopped gaining weight, and he stayed at the same weight for a couple of weeks. Now, I was not very confident at the time, so they said to me at the clinic, and the health visitor said, give him supplement with formula and things like this. And I was planning on expressing because I was planning on going back to work at some point, so I wanted to get up my expressing. But I supplemented, I did as they asked, I supplemented with formula. I breastfed until I couldn't anymore. And so I breastfed and formula fed, so combination fed, as I know it is now, for around 2 weeks. So I breastfed Kai exclusively for 6 weeks, and then around 2 weeks combination feeding. Then again, we moved him on to complete formula. Again, cow and gate, again, Advent bottles. That was just what I knew. So I continued to do what I knew. Fast forward to February 2021, when I was due to give birth to Penny, when the C-section was brought forward from the beginning of March to the 18th of February. So I decided once again, I was just going to breastfeed, sorry. So I wasn't going to, a lot of people I knew were taking in the pre-made formula bottles you can get now, just in case, it's like a backup option. Again, I didn't do that. I thought if I put them in my suitcase, I would be more tempted to use them. So I didn't. I didn't even attempt it. I thought, nope, I'm not even going to go down that road. I did have the conversation with my husband, and he agreed with me that no, we'll just see how we go. I had some colostrum that I had expressed in the last couple of weeks leading up to giving birth, and we just thought, well, we've got that. If needs be, he could come home, get some out of the freezer, take it off the hospital. I was lucky. She didn't need that. She, within maybe an hour of her being born, Once I was in recovery, they said, did you want to feed? I was like, yep. So I put her on straight away, and she latched straight away, no problems. So Penny, like I said, she latched straight away. I fed straight away. That first night in the hospital, just me and her. My husband was supposed to stay, although we were in lockdown, because I'm in a wheelchair. Can't quite see it. I'm in a wheelchair, and so my situation is a little complicated, and so provisions were supposed to be made. They weren't, so we weren't aware that he was allowed to stay, and I was on labour ward, so I didn't actually go on to postnatal ward. That's where I started prior to the C-section, and then they took me in. But yes, so that first night, it was usual, I suppose. She fed really frequently. Nipples got sore. Obviously, I hadn't been used to it for nearly, 13 years. So that first night was quite bad. So I used lanolin cream and kept it on my nipples before every feed. I'd put it on. After every feed, I'd put it on. So when Penny was born, we were told she was quite a good weight. She was, I believe, I'm just checking her red book. She was around between the 9th and the 25th centile. So she was born at £6 2 ounces, and that was at 37 plus 2 gestation. Now, by the time she had regained her birth weight, it was 2.5 weeks later. So it took quite a while. She did drop right down to £5 and 7 ounces. So she did drop quite a bit of weight. Now during this time, the midwife who we stayed under for the first 28 days, I believe it was, she started started saying how I should start introducing formula into Penny. And of course I don't know why, but I was like, nope, I can feed her my milk, I'm fine. I'm still producing. I was doing everything I could. I was drinking litres and litres of water a day. I was eating eating more calories. I was trying to include my extra 500 calories a day, as you should during breastfeeding. I was snacking. I was doing everything I could to keep up my supply. I then started to worry, as any new mum does. Whether you've done it once, twice, more times before, you do worry with your baby that you're doing something wrong, that why isn't she gaining the weight? Why aren't they gaining enough weight? Why are the health professionals concerned that they keep dropping weight, or they're not gaining enough weight? She was a little jaundiced too, not enough for treatment, but she was quite yellow when she was born. So again, they were worried. And giving birth to a baby in the middle of February doesn't help jaundice with trying to keep them in the sunlight. We did our best, but it was hard. And so, but yeah, so the midwife came round one time and she saw that I had my breast pump on the side, ready to start when I was ready to start expressing. During pregnancy, I'd bought a Spectra S1, which is a rechargeable pump. It is still a hefty breast pump, but it is an electric one. I did get mine second-hand from eBay and just bought the new parts, so as it's a closed system. But she saw it on the side this one particular day and was like, oh good, you're going to start expressing, that's good. what you should do is start expressing your milk completely and not breastfeed Penny, because she was only feeding on one side for 5-10 minutes and then she'd fall asleep. So I believe she was getting really tired, and maybe it was because she was little, I'm not sure. But so the midwife then pushed me to express completely. Now I said to her, okay, yep, I'll try it. I will try anything just to keep, I didn't want to introduce the formula, so I was like, I'll try anything to try and get Penny's weight up. So after she left that day, I said to my husband, I'm not comfortable in just expressing and not breastfeeding again. And so he agreed. And so I decided to breastfeed overnight, like during the night, and express during the day. And so that's what I did for a few weeks. And pumping works for many people. The more I did it, the more I hated it. The more I just didn't like it. I didn't like the relationship between me and the breast pump. I was constantly concerned about the amount of breast milk I wasn't getting. I would only get maybe 2 ounces on both sides in total, and that was using a double electric pump. And I was like, it just made me so sad to put in half an hour or 45 minutes power pumping effort to see not a lot, and then worry that Penny wasn't going to get enough breast milk throughout the day. And at the beginning it was easy because she wasn't drinking that much, and so I was putting it in the freezer, so we had a supply in the freezer. But then we started having to dip into that supply in the freezer, and so I just got very concerned that I just wasn't producing enough milk for her, and that I was doing everything I could. I was researching, watching YouTube video after YouTube video on how to increase your supply, power pumping 2-3 times a day, and pumping on schedule every 2 hours leading up to that. And it just got relentless and frustrating. And so I got to the point of where I was done with that. So I decided I was done with pumping at around when Penny was around 4 weeks old. I did even try the LV wireless double breast pump, and that just didn't work for me. It just didn't work with the silicone inside it. I just don't think my body accepted the material of it, so it just became sore and uncomfortable, so I stopped using it. And it is quite powerful. It's a different power to the Spectra, and so what works for one person doesn't work for everybody. So I decided to stop pumping, and that by this point Penny was not loving taking a bottle. Although it was my milk in a bottle, we kept having to warm it up, kept having to try different things with it, and to try to get her to take the bottle, take milk from a bottle. And I don't know, maybe she just sensed my frustration with the pumping, or maybe she just didn't like taking the bottle anymore. But she refused to take the bottle, and that just cemented my decision to stop pumping. So that's what I did. I then was concerned about, was I actually going to produce enough milk by breastfeeding her all day, all night? And so I researched, I read articles, I read blog posts, community posts on Baby Centre and other baby related apps, and found that somebody had suggested, there was a method out there, someone had suggested just to reintroducing breastfeeding. Now, although I was still breastfeeding overnight, I did think might work, we'll give it a try. So basically, they suggested to just stay in bed all day, pick a day, stay in bed all day with your baby. Just breastfeed for as long as they want, as often as they want. Let them sleep on the breast, anything. Now, I didn't like the idea of just laying in bed all day because I would keep having to call my husband to help me go to the toilet and other things related to disability and things like this. So, and I've got no TV or anything like that in my bedroom. So I decided to just do it on the sofa. I just sat on the sofa and didn't do anything for an entire day. Didn't move, didn't do anything, just breastfed her as long and as often as she wanted to. And it worked brilliantly for us. Now, like I said, it wasn't as though I wasn't breastfeeding at all. And that's what this was more for, if you're trying to reintroduce breastfeeding after you've stopped completely for a period of time. So I was still breastfeeding overnight, every night, every morning, and then I would come downstairs and then start pumping until the evening, and then I would again start breastfeeding again. So it was just more to the point of breastfeeding on a full-time basis rather than technically a part-time basis. And so that's what we did, and it worked, and I kept up my supplements. So I was taking Pregnacare breastfeeding supplements, I was taking brewer's yeast tablets, I was doing everything I could. I was using a hucker as well in case that I wouldn't produce enough milk. So a hucker is just a silicone breast pump. You literally just fold it back and it just suctions onto your boob. And so it catches any letdown from whilst baby's feeding on the other side. And so that's what I did for a little while. And then, but like I said, she wouldn't take anything from the bottle anyway. It was just a last resort thing in case she wasn't getting enough and she again started losing weight and things like this. Luckily for us, she didn't lose the weight. She is, however, a very small baby and is still to this day not too far past double her birth weight at nearly a year old. She is just little. She is on the bottom of the 0.4 percentile for her weight. The last time she got measured length, she was also on the 0.4 percentile and just above that for her head circumference. We are currently awaiting her 1 year check from the health visitor, and I have been told that they will redo her head circumference, her length and her weight again. But like I say, we do get her weighed regularly just because she is on the smaller side. But even now, she still breastfeeds regularly. She still feeds regularly throughout the night. She still breastfeeds regularly throughout the day. And I like the experience. I like the comfort, effectively the hugs you get. Just the bond between me and her is something that you can't replace. I don't think you can get that from anywhere else. So I'm happy to continue doing it for as long as she's happy to continue doing it, and I'll keep assessing as we go down the road. But for now, at nearly 11 months, we are continuing our breastfeeding journey strong, and she doesn't show any signs of stopping stopping, sorry. She doesn't show any signs of stopping anytime soon. Too many shush sounds there. So, I hope that helps. Any questions, please do leave a comment and I will get back to you. Also, if you've got any requests for future videos, please do let me know. I do plan to do some on Penny's, on our weaning journey with a baby with allergies, as Penny has a milk allergy and an immediate egg allergy, which I believe I mentioned in my previous video. So, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.